Welcome to Operations and Supply Chain University. I'm Jerry Wright. This is lesson number 5, critical to quality, or CTQ, and the Kano Model. So critical to quality, CTQs are what our customer expects from the product or service. They are the spoken needs of the customer. They'll tell us what they want, what they need, what's important, what's not important. CTQs basically tell us how we need to design our product or service, or improve our product or service. So critical to quality elements are the key measurable characteristics of a product or process or service whose performance standards or specifications must be met to satisfy the customer. CTQs are rendered from the VOC data that was collected back in our VOC lesson. CTQs must be specific, they must be measurable, and they must be actionable. If they're not, they cannot be a critical to quality element. CTQs always have 3 elements to them: a CTQ category, a customer specification, and some form of a unit of measure. You need all of those to be able to address them. If you don't have them, how will you design your product, process, or service? How's it going to happen? You need to have those. Now, CTQs and the Kano model, let's talk about what that means. Certain attributes or features of a product may be considered critical to quality, as we've mentioned already. CTQ attributes are the translation of the customer needs into quantifiable or measurable requirements of the product or service. The CTQs represent the attributes of the product or service that they must have to achieve true quality. Now, Dr. Kano came up with a model that indicates how customer needs can be categorized. First of all, there are musts. These are expected needs for the product. If they are not met, the customer will be dissatisfied. However, if they're fulfilled, the customer is not necessarily satisfied. The customer usually only mentions them if they are not met. So musts are absolutes, they're required. Wants, now the more these needs are met, the more the customer is satisfied. Essentially, more of these wants being fulfilled is better, less being fulfilled is worse. However, they're wants, they're not needs. So they're desires, they're things people would like, but they're not absolutes like the musts are. There's also a third category that Dr. Kano said is these are delighters. These do not cause dissatisfaction when they're not present because they're not expected. They satisfy the customer because they are in addition to the musts and the wants. Once the delighter becomes expected from the product, it soon moves into the must category. Let's look at some examples of delighters. One of the ones that came around in 2007, 18 years ago, was a touchscreen iPhone. And shortly after that, Samsung delivered their version. How about a backup camera? Wasn't required till around 2010, 12, somewhere in that time frame. Before that, a backup camera was a luxury and wasn't expected. Now, pretty much every new car has a backup camera for safety. So definitely a delighter for me as well. How about Wi-Fi on an airplane or a cruise ship? You're out in the middle of nowhere up in the sky, and yet you can surf the internet. So pretty cool. Another one, how about this? This is one of my favorites. Tire pressure gauge from your dashboard. You don't have to get out and put the tire pressure gauge on each of the tires. You can read it right from your panel. So definitely a delighter. And I'm sure you have many other ones you could consider. Now, these delighters have now moved into almost the must category across the board. Maybe not the tire pressure one, because some people don't know they have it, but Wi-Fi, it's expected, and when it's not on the plane, people are upset. So again, interesting how these delighters have become musts. Now, one of the things that's used out there, and this was something that Dr. Kano advocated, is a critical to quality tree. So these take general expectations or desires and turn them into something specific, into a CTQ. So if you look at this example, and I chose an iPhone 17, so my need is I want my iPhone 17 to perform as expected. Okay, well, what does that mean? What are the drivers? You know, that's very general. It's hard to measure. Okay, let's get more specific. The product is strong and durable. It's fast and easy to use, and it has a nice appearance. Okay, that's a little more specific, but it's not really something I can work with. let's get a little further into this. So under product is strong and durable, I now move over to the specific CTQ. The iPhone case is rugged, aluminum 5052. Okay, that's a little more reasonable. I can understand that. For product is fast and easy to use is I have the processors at a 2 gigahertz rating, and the touchscreen has the new iOS 16 or whatever that current version is. And then for product has a nice appearance. The AI is polished glass and it's ultra clear. So maybe that's a good way to have it. So you can see we've gone from kind of a general concept or consideration to a much more specific thing in this example of a CTQ tree. So you might want to do one of these for your project. Again, it's not required. It's just something to think about if you don't really understand what your product is delivering or what your service needs to deliver to keep your customers satisfied. All right, that's it for critical to quality and the Kano model. For recommended resources and reading, there's Mastering the Kano Model by Gerardus Blockdick. That's a good tool to dig into if you want to read more about it. You can also find more about the Kano model online on YouTube and through other Google and search engines. Thanks for your time.